Welcome back. My guest this week has been in the pages of Playboy and Penthouse. She was a former cyber girl. She has done YouTube, and on her YouTube channel, she does incredible try-on hauls. She has a ton of vintage clothes and is very much into vintage artwork, and I got to meet her and hang out with her several times. This is awesome to see her again. This is Miss Carlotta Champagne. How you doing, Carlotta?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very cool. You have a very, very interesting vibe on social media.
Okay.
and on YouTube specifically. One of my best friends is CJ Sparks, and that's how we met. It was
Right.
for her birthday. We went out to Top Golf and like basically took that place over and destroyed it. I don't know how we didn't get kicked out that day. That was pretty wild. So I didn't realize that you were born in Miami.
Yeah.
What was your upbringing like?
I really didn't live there. I was just born there,
Yeah.
and I have very little memories of it. I did grow up in Florida mostly, but it wasn't like the Miami vibe. It was more like I feel like where I lived was more like deep south.
So like where? We're in the deep south.
I lived in Central Florida and kind of just this little redneck town called Winter Haven. And then I also lived up in Pensacola, which is like Floribama.
No, I know. I did my water survival training in the Air Force at Pensacola.
Okay.
Yeah, had to jump out of an airplane there. That place is the most humid place I've ever been in my entire life. Was Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, it is pretty humid there.
It's pretty crazy there. Were you the cool kid in high school? What were?
No, I was the goth girl.
Okay, so that's the next thing I was going to say. So because you kind of give that vibe now,
Yeah.
and you were the goth girl in high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I pretty much dressed in all black, and I always had kind of crappy attitude and
Yeah.
just whatever. Had crazy colored hair, and I wanted to be a suicide girl.
Okay.
And I guess I wasn't weird enough because I didn't get any tattoos, so they rejected me on suicide girls, and I was like, well, screw them. I'm gonna go get into Playboy then.
So this seems to be like a common thing with a lot of girls. It's like Playboy seems to be this thing where girls are like, it's not even the Playboy, it's that someone told you you can't make it or you're not good enough. You told a story before previously. There was a photographer who told you weren't good enough to be in
Yeah.
Playboy. What happened there?
Yeah, so basically this photographer told me like I shouldn't waste my time going to this casting call because his girls were going to get in and there's only a few slots, so I didn't have a chance. And so I just kind of said, fuck that guy. And I went and hired a hair and makeup artist and went way over the top and showed up. And ironically, I did get in, but it wasn't necessarily just about my looks. I had come in with this purse that I had made.
It was made out of condoms.
It was made out of condoms, yeah. And I was in art school at the time, and I was doing all sorts of weird designs. And they pulled me aside, and they're like, tell us about this purse. I'm like, oh, I made it. And they were like, there's lots of pretty girls, but if we can write about you, that makes you a lot more appealing.
Yeah.
So my designs have been in Playboy special editions and also the main magazine.
Are they purses? Like what are the kind of designs?
So I actually was doing all sorts of stuff. I had a line. The purses were really big at the time. I was doing a lot of charity work with like AIDS organizations and gay pride and things like that. And so I would donate certain items and then, they would also sell them at events or as raffle prizes or whatever. But I would say the purses were the biggest, but I actually did like prom dresses made out of condoms and things like that. And they did end up in big publications.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. You did some other publications out. You did some more stuff with Playboy after that. What specifically was that publication that you did?
Okay,
The first one?
I went to a casting call at the end of 2005,
Okay.
and in 2006 I shot for College Girls, and a couple other like.
Which college did you represent?
University of South Florida.
Okay,
In Tampa.
no, not the Bulls. Which
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
The Bulls. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, basically I represented USF, and they had my purse. Like they had me shoot on a moped, which I thought was weird, but whatever. And they've got the purse on the handle. So that was the first thing. And then they ended up putting me in a grapevine section in the main magazine where I'm wearing garters I made out of condoms as well. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
When you go back to UCF, do they recognize you ever?
Or USF.
Oh, USF. Sorry.
I don't think so. I really haven't been back, to be honest.
Yeah.
I graduated in, oh my gosh, what was it, 2006?
What was your degree in?
Fine art. I have a BFA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Is that you always wanted to be some kind of designer?
I really was into fashion design. They didn't have a fashion program, so I mostly just made clothing out of weird items. Like I did a lot of corsets out of ceramic and like metal work. I was doing a lot of welding and woodwork and things like that. So
very nice.
Yeah.
And so you just your whole life growing up, from the time you were in Miami, you just lived in Florida most of the time there?
yeah, up until And at the end of 2014, I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was after. This is like to become more of a creator, to do more modeling work, to design more stuff.
I never really intended to be a model. I fell into it a little bit because people kept challenging me, but because I was doing design work, I just kept I kept needing models for things. And when people fell through, I was like, well, I'll just do it, you know. And then I started building rapport with photographers locally, and before you know it, I ended up doing more modeling than the design work.
So on YouTube, you do these try-on hauls, which I'm still trying to understand, but so many of the girls come on here and talk about this. You have some try-on hauls with 11 million views. You have some massive try-on hauls on there. You have 350,000 subscribers on YouTube. Can you first off describe, when you started your YouTube, was that what you started doing? And then there's a lot of entrepreneurs who watch this, and I'm curious, how did the growth go for you on your YouTube?
I kind of lucked out with YouTube. I was watching a girlfriend of mine who was doing it. Shout out to Dare Taylor.
Yeah.
And she's awesome. And I've done a bunch of, work with her as well. We do a lot of work together. But she said to me, she's like, I don't know why you don't do these, because you're actually really, really into fashion.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I should. And for some reason, some of the ones just started taking off right away. And I do think it's partially because she helped me out. Initially, we did a couple of hauls together.
And Dare has a pretty rabid following also.
Yeah, she does. I think she's got about 315,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So when I started mine, I did do a couple with her, and it really helped right away because it exposed me to a fan base that was already into it. But then I also was promoting it in different ways. And because I'm very knowledgeable about fashion, I was good about using keywords that would get looked up. So I think that I might have honed in a little more, but I also picked up some things on YouTube. I don't think they work anymore, but at the time I found loopholes on YouTube. I'm like, I don't know if I should talk about this, but I realized that I could change the title of my YouTube videos a couple of times.
Yeah.
And occasionally a word would hit like another viral title from somebody
Yeah,
else.
it's weird.
And
I just did that this week.
Yeah.
I literally, one of my, so I have a clips, I don't have a clips channel. I have a team that puts up 10-minute clips. And one of them, they had put it up and it was this crazy thing. And I just changed, it was me interviewing Dan Bilzerian. And I made Bilzerian the cover photo because it wasn't before, and then I changed the title to his name first, and then it goes viral weeks later. So yeah, it is interesting how that does work sometimes.
Right. So yeah, definitely like words mean certain things, and also you can change the thumbnails, and it will.
Do you? So you can change the thumbnails after the fact, and they've been able to go viral.
Yes, but I would say if you do it too much, it's almost like they shut you down. So I
Really?
feel like if you do it after 2 or 3 times, it recognizes it and thinks you're like cheating the system.
Have you noticed? I've seen across the board a lot of content creators. I knew people who were hardly doing anything, getting multiple. I have a video with 7 million views up right now, like, and it was just like random. It felt like the earlier days of YouTube feel like what TikTok is now, where everybody, like, I know people who they're truck drivers and they've got a video with 10 million views on TikTok. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just seems like there's every 40th video is this random like explosion of engagement. Do you feel like it was like that with YouTube and it's changed?
I feel like I got into YouTube a little bit late in the game, but I still did really well with it. But over the last 6 to 8 months, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I think they're burying accounts that they feel like are too sexy.
So like what Instagram's doing.
Yeah, essentially the same thing. I think that they bury keywords, and I think try-on haul is very buried.
Really?
Now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you feel like what YouTube is doing, what Instagram does, where they basically build their entire platform off the backs of women, and then later on just start to shun those same women.
1,000%.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we've had that discussion on here several times, where it's just one of these things where I don't. If Instagram wants to change the terms of service and say, I don't want you to wear a bikini, then say that. But that's not what they're doing. They're basically saying, I have 2 women. One of them is young and skinny, and the other one has curves. The one who has curves is being sexually suggested because she has curves. And I'm like, that's like that's what they said in the 1950s about a woman, the way she dressed, she deserved to get raped. Like this is the most draconian bullshit I've ever heard in my life. And when I watch it, it's just crazy to me because an example would be like Lindsay Palas. Her boobs are real. and she has big boobs, and she gets flagged for stuff because her boobs are real. Like, I don't understand. So she's being sexually suggestive because she has curves. One of those things that was really, really confusing to me whenever I saw that. And when you ask Instagram for an explanation, they tell you that's not what they're doing. There's no such thing as shadow banning, and no, you can't pay for a blue check mark. And all three of those things are abject lies.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
That's what makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah, I've had people reach out to me like through, you know, different avenues and offer to sell me the blue check marks and stuff like that. I'm like, it's not worth it to me because I'm so shadow banned that at this point I have over 1 million followers on Instagram and like 1,000 people see my posts. Yeah. It's crazy.
So here's the funny thing. I would recommend anybody who is considering buying a blue check mark, that may have worked a couple years ago. Now Instagram is going back and taking those things away. The big scam people were running was they would go and put up just a track on Beatport, and there would be a nothing, or Spotify or something like that, and it would just be a loop, just a melodic loop. Then they would put out a press release saying that they were going to be a musical artist, and the press release would then get them a blue check mark through being a musical artist. I know dozens of guys who had done this. There was a guy who actually went, I'm not going to say his name because he's already in deep shit with Instagram, but he was going around literally advertising this on Instagram. They took away his account, and then they started going after people for doing that. I've seen doctors do this, other people where they get a blue check mark for being musicians. And the thing is, like, it's coming to roost where all these people who bought these blue check marks are like kind of paying for it in the end. So I recommend that people do not do this. Also, the other thing, I'm sure you've gotten the messages before that were like, hey, do you want to be on the Explore page? Where they buy you a bunch of bots to try to get to put your content on the Explore page. That probably worked 2 years ago. That is absolutely a disaster now. Anybody who writes you that, I would block them immediately. That strategy is a terrible, terrible, terrible fucking strategy. Do not do it.
I mean, I don't even put focus on Instagram anymore. Yeah. Like, I post on there, but it seems like such a dead platform for what it was a few years ago. Sure. Like, 3 years ago, I got so much work off of there. It was a status to have a lot of followers, and now people are like, well, what are you doing on TikTok?
Isn't it crazy?
It's super crazy. And TikTok for me is so much harder. Like, a lot of people do really, really well on there. I struggle with it.
I've said this many times, and I believe that we're going to find this out in the future. I believe 85% of TikTok engagement is fake. I believe that it's bots, these people, like these Chinese bots. And the reason why I believe that is because those of us who are running businesses off TikTok and Instagram, when we look at our leads that come through, nothing but unqualified leads come through on Instagram or on TikTok. So for instance, there was a point where I had the same amount of engagement on both. Recently, my Instagram is going past my TikTok, but I was getting the same amount of engagement on both, and so we would put up a link in bio to try to run the business. And I've had several other people do this too. And it's about 11 or 12 to no, it's about 20 to 1. Meaning people will click on your link in bio on Instagram and maybe buy your product 20 times more likely than they will on Instagram. And when they do on TikTok, they tend to be just incredibly unqualified buyers. Right. And so that is indicative to me where I know too many people who are just like VIP hosts, or like I said, a truck driver or someone like that, or a guy who works at McDonald's who made a funny video and they've got 20 million views. And I'm like, no, I don't believe that. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? There's just too many Tom, Dick, and Harrys with 20 million view videos. You see what I'm saying?
I definitely can see that. Yeah. I would not be surprised at all.
Because it's not converting. The other reason why I'm saying that, there is a company right now, it's publicly traded. I'm not going to call them out, but they were $36 a share. They put their entire marketing budget into TikTok. They are now 66 cents. That's how much they cost. It completely bankrupt. It completely destroyed the company's infrastructure because the ROI on TikTok is next to zero. Like, this is what I'm saying. I truly believe that there are 17-year-old, 14-year-old kids running around Los Angeles right now, and people think they're famous, and no one actually knows who they are because their engagement is almost entirely fake.
I think that's a huge amount of social media in general. Like, everybody thinks they're a celebrity, and you leave your little circle and no one cares. So
I go out with some of my friends who have 4 million followers, and I get recognized more than them, and I'm just so confused. And then I just kind of realize a lot of times if you look at engagement, the number of people that are watching this stuff from either Bucharest or Jakarta or Tehran or places like that, you know, or someplace in India. And it's just like, it's not, for somebody trying to run a business, that's not super helpful. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Or like, I got a bunch of followers from Brazil and like, they can't afford my product. So like, I don't really, you know, or they can't even speak the language. I don't understand where a lot of this comes from. So that's problematic. The other thing is people who don't like you buying you fake followers. This is a new thing I'm seeing that people are doing.
Really?
Like, yeah. So you'll have competitors and one of them will buy another one a bunch of fake followers, but their engagement doesn't go up. So the guy's got like 400,000 followers and gets 100 likes a post and looks terrible. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
It costs nothing to buy fake followers from Brazil or from India. Nothing. It's so cheap.
The scams on all of these social medias have really just made it very difficult for people to survive, because I feel like Instagram, especially with things like shadow banning, where like your name won't come up when you try to post it, all they do is cater to people stealing your identity.
Yeah.
Because now you've got 12 fake Carlotta champagne accounts and you can't find mine. But I recently, this was like maybe 2 months ago or so, someone made a fake Carlotta champagne account and then claimed that theirs was the real one with their like 50 followers, and that my account was stealing their identity. And they shut my million person like follower account down. Yeah,
I was also last year suspended for impersonating myself.
It's crazy.
Yeah, here's the other crazy part. Guys were using my images and then getting online, and because I recruit for the Maxim parties, the Ignite parties, and I used to do stuff with the Playboy, they would go and be like, hey, we want you to come to this thing. They're like if anybody from Meta is listening, they're actual people using my image to get women to physically come to locations with dangerous people by using my image. And they're like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal, no problem. And it took them months to get rid of the fake accounts and took my account down. Yeah. Like, I just don't, like, we're getting to the point where it's become a significant problem. And I wonder if someone would just have a platform where they went back to, I don't know, 2014 terms of service. Meaning, if you can't see my rectum or my vagina or my nipples or my penis or whatever, I'm not violating terms of service.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just put a not safe for work for the rest of it. I just don't understand, because the problem is this, right? In the judicial system, you're innocent until proven guilty. On social media, you are guilty, no matter what. And I've seen situations where on Reddit, there's a group of fundamentalist religious people who will go on there and be like, I hate this girl. This is what happened to Claudia Fajal. She was on there, and there's this guy who's just like, we're gonna take her down. And this guy goes on Twitter and he spews his hate, and then he picks a different Instagram model every week, and then they take that girl down. Do you understand what I'm saying? Instagram is like, well, we're just gonna go with the mass, what they're saying, and then we're gonna take this girl down. There was a solution that I heard that was suggested that I thought was beautiful, and the solution is, if you have a photo that they want to take down for violating terms of service, let 100,000 people see the photo, and then they get to vote on whether or not you violate terms of service. And those 100,000 people have to be in your demographic. They can't be 100,000 people from the Middle East who think you need to be wearing a headscarf. I think if they did that, that would work. The other thing is, if somebody reports your account for something that isn't you, so for someone that reports you for impersonation or animal cruelty and there's no animals on your account, their account should be suspended. Yeah. If they did that, oh my God, that'd be incredible. And then the third thing, and this would fix everything, I should be able to deny followers from certain countries. I know that sounds like jingoistic, but like, if I could get rid of every follower I had from Jakarta, Indonesia, or fucking Brazil, all the spam would go away. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, actually, so OnlyFans, I believe, has it so that you can block certain countries. I know that CC Bill in general did, which is their billing company. Yeah. Because I used to have a pay site that I ran myself prior to OnlyFans and all that. And we actually did have blocks on certain countries solely because they stole so much content.
Which countries?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. My webmaster dealt with all of it. But I think Indonesia was one of the main ones. Yeah. But yeah, it tended to be like poor Middle Eastern countries and poor Asian countries. Yeah. We dealt with huge amounts of not just spam, but mostly like one person would buy your content and then just like mass send it out for free.
By the way, those of you who are getting those text messages like, hey, Sarah, are you there? I don't know if you've got any of these random messages. Sometimes you get them on WhatsApp. Sometimes you get text messages.
It's always through WhatsApp.
It's WhatsApp or whatever. It's because these are people in the Philippines and in Jakarta, in Indonesia, that are doing these scams. And basically the scam is, sorry, Sarah, I thought you were John or something like that. It's like, and then somehow it leads to give me your PayPal account so I can send you money. When people are like, give me your PayPal account so I can send you money, so they can steal money from you, that's essentially what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's from these same countries, and it just seems like there's a very easy way to fix this problem, but they don't seem to be interested in fixing the problem. I talked to a buddy of mine who works at Meta. They just laid off a bunch more people recently, and so they don't intend on like fixing it. And it's just this whole thing is becoming crazy, and I just feel like
for them, I think it's a numbers game. They just like having this amount of people,
of course,
like, on their social
media. Also they've gotten to, when you have a business that's that big, you get to a point where you can't get really any bigger, right? If half the world's population is living on $1 a day, which is about what it is, then that's about a little less than 4 billion people that aren't even on social media. Right. You have the other 4 billion that are left, and you've already got over 2 billion of them on your platform. You can't really grow that much more. So I think from their standpoint, it's like, okay, we've gotten to the maximum exposure that we can get worldwide. So now let's get rid of the Playboy models, and then let's try to get Mercedes-Benz and McDonald's and all. Let's get them more, Nike. Let's sell them more advertising space. And the problem for us, if we're Instagram, is that if Lindsay Palas gets all these views for free and doesn't have to do any advertisement for it, she's actually doubly bad for our program, because we feel that her content is lascivious and she gets all this engagement. She's taking away engagement from our paying customers.
Right. And they don't want people who are taking people off the platform.
Exactly.
So if your link to OnlyFans or whatever is getting people to click out of Instagram and go to OnlyFans, that's considered a negative.
Yeah. And then here's the other thing. So another place where Instagram is like, just they're blatantly lying. I'll give you 2 examples. Kylie Myers and Caitlin Runk do not even shoot nudes on their OnlyFans. They'll have a link going over there, and their account will be suspended because there are what's the term they use on Instagram? It's a violation of terms of service because you're advertising some sort of sexual activity. And I'm like, they're not even nude on their OF. Like, what you're saying is absolutely not true, and you're still suspending their account for this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, they're treating you sending someone to OnlyFans the same way as you soliciting someone for sexual intercourse. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're doing that. And like, to me, I'm like, I don't know why someone wouldn't file a class action lawsuit, because to me, that's defamation. If you're suspending me for breaking a law that I didn't break, by definition, that is defamation. How is that not? Yeah. Defamation, you only have to prove damages if it's something like where there's damages. But if you accuse me of breaking the law, I should be able to sue you. And that's why I'm thinking, like, at some point this whole thing has to break.
You know, I've been surprised there hasn't been class action lawsuits in that way. Like what you're saying, for sure. I've also thought about it in terms of the fact that things like Instagram bans women significantly more than men.
Yes.
So
it's the thing. TikTok does too. So Kindly and I tried this. We were posting the similar content. Her stuff. She lost 6 accounts. I kept my TikTok for a year before they finally took it down, and then I started a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like I don't like, I honestly don't get it. Like, it's one of these crazy things. It feels like if one platform just said, "Hey, we're not going to do this," they would kill everyone else.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand why that hasn't happened.
I mean, I guess you can do it on Twitter. Who knows what's going to happen with Twitter right now? It feels like it's very up in the air.
Isn't it interesting though, like how threatened people are by the fact that Elon Musk bought Twitter?
Very. I mean, I guess I don't really. He's not on my peripheral vision.
No, but the thing is, like, he's not like on a scale of like 10 being ultra right wing conservative and 0 being like a super leftist, progressive. He's like a 6. Yeah. He's not that. He's like, oh, he's right wing. He did build electric cars to get us away from petroleum, right? But you think he's a hardcore right wing conservative? That doesn't make any sense. And I see it. And I'm like, he just wants to bring back people to the platform who were on there before, and so that I'm supposed to be worried and scared about this. I don't understand. I don't understand. There's no perfect person to run Twitter. Anyone who runs Twitter is going to be biased.
Right.
The idea that he's less biased than Jack Dorsey, you're just fooling yourself. You're a moron if you believe that. Jack Dorsey, great businessman, whatever, but this guy is far, far, far to the left, far more than Elon Musk is to the right. So I'm a little confused why there's this angst and ire against Elon Musk buying Twitter.
There's a very strange thing with, it makes me nervous to talk about this because I don't want people to get upset with me, but American culture has this weird obsession with hating rich people while desperately wanting to be rich.
Oh, interesting.
And so Elon Musk has become like enemy number 1 for so many people. Oh, he doesn't do enough, charity, doesn't, whatever. And it's like, but even though people say all these things, everyone's goal is to be as wealthy as him.
Yeah.
So, and I see it constantly. So we definitely villainize rich people in American culture.
Can we talk about this? So you posed for Playboy After that, so I hosted a bikini competition here with Crystal Hefner for a couple years, and we became friends. And she would invite me to the Playboy Mansion. So I've been, I want to say 3 times. Once as a videographer and twice as like a guest.
Okay.
Going there, can you talk about before they shut it down what your experiences were like? Because I try to describe it to people, but it's hard. It's hard to describe.
Man, so the Playboy Mansion, I started going there in 2006. So that was when they were filming Girls Next Door.
Yeah.
And it was still like a big TV show. I was kind of in a fortunate position because at the time I was married, so I was not in party mode. I'm not a partier now even, but at the time I was like, I'm basically here for the food, you know? Yeah. So I somehow found my way into going to the mansion. I think I just begged somebody in Chicago to ask Hef or whatever, and they let me go to one of the Halloween parties. And I wrote the woman that ran the guest list just the nicest letter. Yeah. And I think she put me on their main guest list because no one's nice to her. Everyone was like, you know, I only contact you when I need you. And instead I'd sent her this nice letter about how life-changing it was. And she was like, you can come anytime. So I did. And I would go up there for like fun in the sun and like movie nights and things like that. So I really got to experience like the big parties.
What were the movie nights like? Those are like pretty historic.
Yeah. So on Sundays they would show like a new movie. On Friday nights they would show an old movie. I only went to one of the old movies, but on Sundays they would often have like the actors come from the movie to like introduce it. Yeah, so I got to experience that a few times where like big actors came in, and then Hef would always read something before, like talk about the historic whatever. It was very cute, and the girls would all sit on the floor on like little bean bags in the front, and he did have.
Was this out in the backyard?
No. It was in the theater.
Oh, the theater. Okay.
Yeah, and he had a lot of celebrity friends, but. Like some were cooler than others. Like Corey Feldman was always there. He didn't miss a Sunday.
Shout out to Corey Feldman who comes to every Babes in Toyland as well. I see him there all the time. Yeah.
And John Lovitz was there a lot. Okay. And he was absolutely a doll. So sweet.
I see. I would see Bill Maher and who's the other guy? Pauly Shore.
I saw Bill Maher and Pauly Shore at most of the parties, but I did not see them at like Fun in the Sun or the movie nights. But Corey Feldman was there a lot, and John Lovitz was there frequently. And there was a lot of other people, like All the Way Ray. Did you ever meet him?
No.
He was in the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, I believe, and he was one of Hef's best friends. He's like in his 90s. I think he's still alive. Or he might even be 100 now. But he was really funny. He was elderly and had a lot of energy, but he'd go around pinching girls' butts, and if they got upset, he'd just pretend he was like not mentally with it.
Man, there is just a different time, bro. Yeah. It was a different, isn't it crazy? Like when you think about like how many things have changed, I believe. So in December of '53, when he buys the rights to those photos, so it wasn't a pictorial for Marilyn Monroe. I believe what happened is somebody else had taken nude photos. Yeah. He bought the rights to those photos, and then she did an interview for that. I think she did with her permission. She did the December '53
I
issue.
don't know if she did an interview or not.
Did she?
I don't think she did, but I believe that almost all their pictures for at least the first year were all stock images.
Okay. Yeah. And he was the editor at Vogue before that. I believe that's what happened before he.
I don't think it was Vogue, but I can't remember what
Esquire,
it was.
Esquire. Yeah, he was the editor at Esquire before he moved over and started his own his own brand, Playboy. Yeah, it's just really interesting. I read some stories. Like very controversial. You know, when you think about what happened, it was a very different time, but it created a lifestyle, and so many women wanted to be in that scene and part of that lifestyle. And it was so crazy going in there because I watched, with the Girls Next Door. I think the mansion had its height of popularity when that show was coming out. And Kendra Wilkinson was sitting there with 3 6 Mafia, like rapping and all that kind of stuff that was going on. And then the other house where my friend Crystal Hefner was living in that other house. And it was just, it's an interesting time.
Yeah. Playboy has really gone like in and out of waves. Like they had huge success initially, and then they had a TV show, I think in the late 50s or early 60s called like Playboy After Dark, something like that. That was big. And then they kind of, they basically coasted for a long time, and then they opened the clubs, and that shot them up, and then they took an illegal bribe in New York, and it made them lose their liquor license, and then all their clubs shut down, and they almost went bankrupt. So they've been on a lot of waves. Unfortunately, now I'm like, they barely exist, which is sad to me because it is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. And if it was marketed correctly, I think it could do very, very well still.
Yeah, it's interesting. So they bought Yandy, and now, they may have created Yandy. I'm not sure. And then their lingerie stuff they do over Yandy. Yandy was the sponsor for the $130,000 bikini competition I did at Wet Republic. So the first prize was $20,000, and that came from Yandy. And then first prize won a Yandy photo shoot. Or a modeling contract with Yandy after that whole thing happened. Any crazy stuff that you saw when you were at the mansion?
Oh, I know that stuff goes on there, but I didn't see too much insanity. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of a good story and nothing's going to come to mind. I met a lot of interesting celebrities. I saw Backstreet Boy getting it on in the grotto once.
Okay.
But
yeah. So you also mentioned a former musician was trying to dance with you on the dance floor.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So a kind of washed up rock star was trying to grind on me on the dance floor once, and it was so awkward because I'm trying to like.
I'll blink it out if you say his name because I have a guess who it is. But keep going.
Oh, okay. It was.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, he's like trying to dance on me and I'm just like, oh God, what do I do? Oh God, what do I do? And as I'm trying to just back away, the DJ starts playing one of his songs, thinking he's helping him out. And it just makes it so much worse because he's like way too into it. Like he's like biting his lip and like, and I start laughing uncontrollably. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta go.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that part of Hollywood. I've noticed that a lot of guys who are super rich or famous at one point, they kind of miss the steps in order to develop a normal personality or an ability to talk to women in a normal way. And they're just like, I'm famous. You can come here now. And like when the fame goes away, they never develop the ability. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then they're older, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And they're trying to do the same thing they did when their movie came out in the 90s or whatever, and it just doesn't work out the same way.
Yeah.
And it comes off as, like a little bit awkward. Whereas if they had been like poor at one point or just a normal person for a significant part of their life, instead of being famous in their 20s, they probably wouldn't be like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that whenever I talk to people who were poor once and then became wealthy, they tend to like be a little easier to deal with than people who were just like very, very wealthy very early on. The other thing is, so for me, I was a couple things. There's the game room, and I think there's one or two bedrooms that are like hidden in that wall. You know what I'm talking about in the game room? I saw a girl bring her boyfriend in there because it was like, we're going to have sex at the Playboy Mansion, right? I saw that, just drag him in there. Yeah. In the grotto, you see a bunch of people having sex. It's really warm in there too. I think they heat that part of the.
Yeah. So a bunch of people actually got this disease there one year. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was like some disease you get in the lungs from like steam and indoor.
Yeah.
Jacuzzis. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of germs in there.
Yeah, it was. I could smell the chlorine, and it was really warm. And I saw these people having sex in there, and I remember watching this. It was at the end.
It's called Legionnaire's disease.
Legionnaire's disease. Holy shit, that's a big one. Yeah, that is not a good one to get. That's not the fun one to get. So I watched these people. They were having sex in the grotto, and security guard comes up, and I was like, "Oh, they're about to kick these motherfuckers out." And they're like, "Hey guys, could you guys go a little further inside real quick while you're having sex in the grotto?" They didn't say shit to them.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of sex there, surprisingly. And the few people I did, they were usually celebrity-ish, so they just kind of left them alone. But I don't know. I felt like, I guess because I was there on Sundays when it was smaller, it felt very like wholesome.
Yeah.
But I was also there when Hef was like elderly.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of cameras around for the girls next door as well. So I think maybe people were keeping on like a good impression of everything.
I think when he starts this, or when they get popular in the 60s and 70s, I think people are more sexual and less exhibitionist. And I think now people are more of, they want to display it more. There's tons of studies showing that people have less sex now than they did back then. Men especially, like 33% of men show having zero sexual partners in the last year. Right?
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I think with like the internet and phones, people's social abilities are really low.
Yeah, I think this generation now shows more, but is less likely to be in an orgy than in any generation. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel like I know so many women who they're on OnlyFans doing crazy lascivious stuff in the comfort of their own home, in the comfort of their own bedroom, with their husband filming it, right? And then never go out. Never go party. They don't snort a bunch of 2C. They're not fucked up in the VIP of a nightclub. That whole thing is gone. They're just at home. And I think that part has changed significantly. I think that's a huge difference. But yeah, I mean, I just remember that I have a buddy of mine. He was a female friend of mine, and she was like, a guy asked her, he's like, hey, do you want to go have sex in this room? And she said no. And afterwards being like, I regret that. She's like, I could have had sex in the Playboy Mansion and I didn't do it. It was really a really interesting thing, man. Yeah, but I was just there for the parties.
Yeah.
That was a pretty crazy time. It really is interesting when you're walking around there and you just see this history, because the house was built in like 1927, 1929, something like that. But there were I remember it was Brody Jenner was the DJ that last time. I was there for the last Midsummer Night's Dream Party.
Okay.
It was just really interesting watching that. Can you talk about this? Your relationship with Dara and your relationship with CJ, are they like your?
I don't know who Dara is.
Huh? Dara.
Dara?
Dare.
Dare.
Okay. I'm sorry. I would say Dare. I'm sorry. I put it here. Dare.
Sorry. So me and Dare Taylor.
I keep saying Dara, but like, it's Dare. Sorry.
So Dare Taylor and I have known each other, gosh, I don't know, about 5 years or probably longer. But she came out to Los Angeles as this like super fresh-faced model and had no idea what she was doing. And we just had a photographer,
she has
mutual
a very
friend,
unique look.
And he was like, "Can you put her up?" And I was like, "Oh, so many of these young girls are just really ego-driven without anything behind it."
Because they were the hottest girl in Secaucus at the Hooters.
Right.
They were the prettiest girl to work at Twin Peaks in Wichita. That's the reason why they come here like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she came to LA like fresh-faced and like, whatever. But this kid worked so hard. Yeah. I mean, she was like Instagramming the whole time and YouTube videoing the whole time. And she was taking photo shoots from morning to night. And then she'd stay up late. And I watched her and I was like, you know what? If I don't do what she's doing, I'm not going to have a career, because the whole point of like, most people are in this industry 2 years. That's it.
Yeah.
I've been in this industry 20 years, and it's because you have to be able to follow the trends and keep evolving.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to have met her, because she made me see I'm not evolving. I have to get on top of social media. That's when I took Instagram seriously, was after she left. But she and I became really, really good friends. And when she decided to move to Los Angeles, I kind of took her under my wing and we went apartment hunting. And I feel like, even though we're not that far in age, like I feel like I'm a little maternal towards her.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
Why you live in Vegas now?
Yeah.
Why did you initially want to move to LA, and why did you later want to move to Vegas?
Los Angeles, I was getting out of a bad relationship, so it was like very ideal to just hop coasts. But I was also there all the time. I was working in LA all the time. I was pretty involved in Playboy, and which was unfortunate, because I think the month that I finally made that hop to Los Angeles was when they stopped letting girls in for Fun in the Sun. That's when he got married to Crystal, and I think his health started declining pretty quickly. So they just shut everything down, which was a bummer. But yeah, so where was I?
What was the whole deal with that? So Crystal, I don't know all the details here, but he was with Holly Madison for a while, and Holly wanted children with him, wanted to get married, and that doesn't happen. And then he marries Crystal, and it seemed to be like the relationship that Holly wanted, and Holly was very upset about it. That was the vibe I got.
Yeah, I guess I've only seen what's on the show myself. Yeah. I don't know these people outside of that. I have been listening to Holly Madison's new podcast, which is pretty interesting. I suspect that the whole side thing of them wanting to have children, because there was like a claim that they tried to do in vitro. I think that it was probably BS for like media attention. I would be actually really surprised if he didn't have a vasectomy just after his 2 boys with his the wife before Crystal. Because he was sleeping with so many women after that. It doesn't make sense to be risking that. Especially since he notoriously was not a big fan of condoms.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Really?
Yeah.
I've read every biography.
Maybe I did hear this somewhere. Yeah, I guess I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know from personal experience.
That's a crazy one, man. That's a crazy one. So you and Dare are living. Oh, so I guess my question is, why'd you move to Las Vegas then? Next.
You know, I ask myself that same question all the time. I was looking for a house in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been house hunting like 6 months or so, and it was crazy. Like $1 million will get you a shack that's a fixer-upper and needs tons and tons of work. And I was looking for a time capsule that didn't need $1 million in repairs, and I couldn't find it. And there was this house in Vegas that I'd been watching for like almost a year. I had like Redfin or something ping me anytime a indoor pool came up for sale.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had this fantasy of an indoor pool, but this house was just available here, and it would go on the market, off the market, on the market, off the market, and they dropped the price. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to go look at it. And this house seduced me. It was a casino owner's home in the 80s.
Okay.
And it's extremely novelty, like waterfalls over the fireplace and conversation pits in the master bedroom. I've got an indoor pool, a theater, and it was so cheap compared to anything I could have gotten in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it here because there's no traffic, there's no humidity.
It's funny, the locals still complain about the traffic there.
Here?
Yeah, they're like, oh, you Californians came over.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. I can't stand living in LA. When I was there, I just felt like, man, it was just a bunch of entitlement, and
it's so funny. I think it's just maybe according to like the circles you spend
for sure.
as well, because I loved Los Angeles, but I found myself in a very creative, artistic group of friends. I really am not very involved in the modeling scene, despite the fact that that's my living. I'm much more involved in like going to art shows and gallery shows and fashion shows and seeing kind of the cutting edge of whatever creativity is.
You mentioned before you don't have a lot of friends from those times in Playboy.
I had a couple of really close friends in Playboy, but I'll be honest, I didn't like a lot of the girls I met from Playboy. There was a lot of ego. One of the experiences I had was that most of the girls that got into Playboy were not actually working models. They'd gotten in because they, went to the university, or because they were chasing a sugar daddy or whatever. And so it was much harder for girls who were professional models. I was a professional figure model because they wanted to more or less get you the first time you shot naked. And so it made it much harder for the pros to actually get in. And so once I made some really decent contacts there, I started getting my girlfriends in. So like I pushed Titania Lynn to go to one of their castings. My friend Sarah Liz, I set her up with one of the photographers who was shooting for Cybergirl. And anyway, that's how I ended up with friends in Playboy, is I set it up so that they would meet the right people, because otherwise it was a very ego-driven community.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We talked about this beforehand. So there are international magazines. So a large media outlet, I won't say their name yet because the story hadn't come out. They interviewed me about the Kelsey Turner murder trial, which she just did an Alford plea last week, which means she pled no contest to killing her sugar daddy. Anyway, they keep referring to her as Playmate. And so I went and looked it up, and she was in the May 2017 edition of Playboy Italia, and she's not even, like, there's no photos of her. She just did a questionnaire. Well, there were some photos, but she just did a questionnaire. And they're so hung up on this word, because this word means so much in Americana, the word Playmate. Right. And then I feel like, I don't know if Playboy did this specifically or just they needed the money, but all of these international versions of Playboy that popped up, and when you find out that some of them are literally just one dude, they don't even produce like an actual physical magazine, and it's one creepy photographer getting girls to come back to his house or go on a trip with him somewhere. Can you talk about this? Like that whole thing has changed.
Well, this is a huge business. There's a couple of people who got really, really into this, but more or less, gosh, I'm trying to remember when this started, but I would say about maybe 6 years ago, Playboy started leasing out their name to other
it was more
countries.
than that. It was. I think it was around the time they did the whole Mind Geek thing, and
it was around that.
Mind Geek is from Montreal, and that's where, when you guys see Playboy Plus or Cybergirl of the Year, all the online stuff, that's from a company, or not anymore, but that was from a company called Mind Geek. Yeah.
So they started essentially leasing out their brand to other countries, just whoever was paying, you know, and once they were paying to have this brand, they'd, you know, they have their own Playmate. They can do whatever they want. And so girls were paying like crazy amounts of money. They still are, as far as I know.
So it's somewhere between $3,500 and $12,000 to get a cover on one of these. Now, here's the thing. This is not just Playboy. Maxim does this. FHM does this. I had a big model come to me, and she was like, I was offered a cover on FHM, but I just found out that all the other girls were paying to be on this cover, and I'm not. And like, I'm worried about doing this cover because it's going to look like I paid for it. And I'm like, well, first off, I don't think anyone believes you had to pay for it. Like, I don't believe that Abigail Ratchford has to pay for covers. I don't believe that, you know, Chloe Touré has to pay for covers. And even if they did at one point, here's the thing. I've seen it work. I've actually seen, I have a very close friend who paid for, or had her sugar daddy pay for some covers, and it blew up her account. She got verified. She got 2 million followers.
So it's justifiable that girls are doing this because it is getting their foot in the door for other stuff. I know several people who have done it because it's gotten their foot in the door to say, I'm a Playmate, or I'm, you know, on the cover of Maxim. So I do understand that. I've even heard through the grapevine, I mean, this might just be hearsay, but I have heard that there was a girl who paid, her sugar daddy paid a exorbitant amount of money to be a Playmate in the U.S.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'd never heard that. So the point I think we're trying to make is that magazine that you guys are all familiar with, that is based out of the headquarters of Chicago. The Playboy Mansion is on Charing Cross in Bel Air, or I forget, it's Beverly Hills. That company that was founded by Hugh Hefner, that company had Marilyn Monroe, Pamela Anderson. That is not what you're seeing. That is, we're not looking at that same company. Playboy Venezuela is not that company. Playboy Mexico is not that company. Playboy Nigeria is not that company. Playboy South Africa is not that company. Playboy Slovakia is not that, like all these different versions. Some of them, it's crazy. They're buying a license for a country they don't even live in.
Right.
And they're doing photo shoots in the United States for Playboy wherever the fuck, and it's like the girl never visits that place, and it's really interesting.
So a lot of from what I understand, a lot of it is a couple of photographers who have made really, really good contacts.
Yeah.
And they're the ones selling it to the girls. Like, hey, I can get you into Playboy Slovakia. And they've just made like a deal with Playboy Slovakia. And, you know, they might throw them $1,000, but they're getting $8,000 from the girls.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is a couple of photographers who have just, you know, made really good contacts. And I believe there's a couple of models involved in this as well who are like overseeing and managing that. So,
that's nuts, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It was a lot harder before, I think.
Yeah, for sure. When I started, I was a cybergirl in 2007, and cybergirl back then was Playmate tests.
Yeah.
So it was basically pictures that were getting sent to Hef, and then he would decide if he wanted you to come to the mansion and, you know, test like officially, or move you on to actually be a Playmate. And then I think around 2009, 2010, they just started pumping out cybergirls. Yeah. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
Can you talk about you being a vintage collector? I've seen some of the stuff. So the vintage try-on hauls that you do, and then also the other things, the artifacts that you collect.
Yeah, I'm kind of a vintage junkie. I obviously know a lot about Playboy. I started collecting Playboy memorabilia like pretty early on. I like vintage novelty kitsch, like nude stuff. So I have a lot of salt and pepper shaker boobies and like naked girl things. And because of that, I also went on the route of vintage Playboy stuff. So all my dishware is like the clubware from the 70s and their clubs. So
what is the thing that appeals to you? Is it the 1970s, or is it that specific sexual liberation? Like what is it, the part that appeals to you about that?
I'm not really sure. I've always had a very strong love for just the 60s and 70s specifically. But I'm a little all over the place, but as far as adult novelty, that's just my jam. I don't know why. And I've been like that as long as I can remember. Even in high school, I was like obsessed with Betty
You're the
Page.
museum that they have over here on, Desert Inn? And
the Erotic Heritage Museum?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I went there, they had this great exhibit it was like an early porno, and the guy's trying to hide his identity, and he's holding his fake mustache on while he's having sex. It was the best thing ever. Like, I just want to show that everywhere I go.
That's so great.
Yeah, so my whole house is vintage. All my furniture is vintage. The home I bought is a time capsule, and most of the stuff I wear is also vintage. as well as my cars. So
Wait, what cars do you have?
so I have 2 modern cars, and then I have 2 vintage cars. So I have a DeLorean, and I'm currently having a 917 Porsche. Like, it's a kit car being
Yeah.
built. So
Okay, now explain to me the DeLorean. How do you go acquiring a DeLorean? What is it like to upkeep a DeLorean, to drive a DeLorean? What is that?
okay, so OnlyFans hits in early 2020. And I started doing really well with it. So, of course, my mom is like, save your money, save your money. And I'm like, I'm going to buy a DeLorean. I've always wanted one. It's my dream car. So, of course, I jump up and do the dumb thing, which is buy a DeLorean. Their logo is live the dream. I have learned that a nightmare is a form of a dream.
Yeah.
It was my dream car. I always wanted one. And once I got it, I realized this is a nightmare to maintain.
Is it?
I put $10,000 into that car the first year just in repairs.
Wow.
I joined all the car groups. Like, there's DeLorean meetup groups. I joined all of it because those are the only people that really know how to work on it, and the only people you can kind of trust to say, this is someone that can fix this problem. So I'm very much in a boys club. Like, I'm the only girl in this town, as far as I know, that owns a DeLorean.
This is an unusually heavy car for a hatchback, right? This is the thing is made out of stainless steel.
Yeah, it is stainless steel. I don't think of it as such a heavy car, but the engine is in the back. So, like, I have a stick shift, so it's a pain in the butt if I'm like on a hill and the engine's like pulling me back. Like, if somebody gets too close to me, I know I'm going to roll back like a foot.
Oh, wow.
So I'll stay on the brake and I'll wave them by and pretend I'm broken down. I'm like, nope, not even going to test it. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then the other one is the Porsche.
Yeah, so it's a 917 kit car, so it's built on a Volkswagen chassis. But basically, the 917, there was like 12 of them made. They're all in museums, so it's like a $5 million plus car. But I fell onto it in a kit car group. I was actually looking for like a Bricklin or a Bradley, and instead I fell onto this 917, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen one of these, like, in person. And so I went and saw it, and then I couldn't stop myself. So it's been a bit of a process, though, because getting it built is, it's work.
Transitioning to the paid site. So you were on Patreon and then OnlyFans? Is that correct?
I actually have both.
Okay.
Yeah. Patreon, I really focus more on like fine art and high glam. And OnlyFans is a lot more on like selfies and like personal interaction.
Which, and you mentioned before, you were surprised that so many people liked OnlyFans.
Yeah, because I feel like financially, you probably get, I don't know, more bang for your buck on another site.
Because you get to see the entire inventory on another site.
Right.
And OnlyFans, you're paying per post.
Right. But people are very specifically wanting that personal interaction with you. Yeah.
So are you giving out personal interactions? Is it a very time-consuming thing?
It's extremely. When you're doing like private messaging, it's like it can take all day, and so I'm always on my phone. And then I do live streams on there as well, so people can actually see me when they're talking to me. It's funny because I have like super regulars who are just like waiting till that second that I'm live, and then you have other people who are like, they don't know anything about you. They just show up and they're like, show us your butthole. And I'm like, I don't do that. But cool.
In the comments, please write, show us your butthole if you made it to this part in the video.
Yeah. It doesn't exist. It's like a unicorn.
It's not, she doesn't have a butthole. She does not poop. She's like she's a unicorn.
There's actually, there was this old porn forum where someone had said, like, I'm not spending a dime until Carlotta Champagne shows her butthole. And then, like, people started making it a joke because it was on this message board. So there was all these, like, comments of, like, so they say it exists, but no man has lived to tell the tale. And this just went on for pages and pages.
Yeah.
It was so funny. So now I just go along with it.
Are there any kind of shows that you do where you bump into any of your fans? Do you ever do AVN? Do you ever do anything like that?
I used to do like things like GlamourCon, but it hasn't existed in so long. And I did a couple of more like adult conventions, but it's just not my market because I'm not a porn star. I'm very much still on the Playboy softcore side. And so when I would go to those porn conventions, people would be kind of, I don't know.
Dismissive?
Either dismissive or like, rude about it.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd get people who are like, well, when are you doing hardcore?
Really?
Because
They say that?
they're there for that, So yeah, it's not really my market. I'm surprised that they haven't created a convention that kind of brings in social media and sort of the glamour world, because GlamourCon was great when it was at its peak, but they only did as well as Playboy. And when Playboy wasn't successful, GlamourCon basically fell apart.
Did you see an explosion on your OnlyFans during the pandemic, or was it before that? Did you join during the pandemic?
I joined, I think, in March of 2020.
Okay.
So I think I had joined it like right around when the pandemic
Pandemic's,
started.
I mean, officially like March 17th of 2020, yeah.
But like my first couple months, I wasn't really doing anything on there. I didn't really understand how to utilize it. And then another model kind of led me into it and was like, no, this is like the way to be successful with it. And I've done very well with it. Yeah.
What kind of fans? What makes do you have a unique set of fans that would be different than someone else's?
Oh, so
Are they looking for vintage? Is there something specific that you're doing that you find makes you appealing to other girls?
So my fan base is a bit all over the place.
Okay.
I've been in the industry 20 years. I now have a lot of fans who are younger than me, as well as older than me. But the Playboy fan base, when I was in it in like the heyday of like 2006 to 2010, 12, somewhere in there, the fan base was older. They were more conservative. And that is the best fan base to have, because you have conservative men who aren't being very pushy about trying to push your limits. They are older and they usually have money. And it's a really good kind of mesh to have as a base.
How's your non-existent butthole doing? Is it doing okay?
Yeah, so like those fans don't even care,
Yeah.
They're very much on that like classic Playboy look anyway. So they were a great fan base to have, and I still have a lot of those. So they're very ideal. The younger generations have seen everything, and they know how to steal everything on the internet too. So it's actually less ideal to have.
There's no buildup, is there?
Yeah,
You're
so-
14 watching like hardcore porn,
Yeah.
like bootlegging it for free off the internet. Yeah, it's crazy.
So I have a preference to an older, more conservative fan
Yeah.
base, but they range everywhere in between, because I've got the base from when I did Playboy, and then I also have like all these new people from Instagram, because when Instagram was really doing great, like in 2020, I was killing it on there because they kind of dropped all of their, over the top conservative values during the pandemic. Basically, they didn't keep enough people on staff, so
Yeah.
you could get away with anything. And that's how I grew it really quickly. I was just posting like crazy.
Nuts. Yeah. It's funny. You guys who are young, you don't remember, we had to, go hide a box out in the woods with like dirty magazines. And they weren't even dirty. It was just like, it was, Victoria's Secret or whatever those other things were. Like that's what your buddy had. You went over to your friend's house and like the dad had a stash and you had to like wait for everyone to leave that. That's what it was like. Now kids are 12 years old, like looking at hardcore bukkake porn on Pornhub. You know what I'm saying? It's like, are you 18? Click yes. And then that's it. Like that's the only check they have. I can't even imagine. They don't appreciate any of it.
No, I can't even imagine being exposed to that stuff. I was such an innocent-minded kid. I'm like, I think I held hands with a boy once in middle school, and now one of my girlfriends is a school teacher. She's like, we caught these 13-year-olds having sex. I'm like, what is even happening?
13-year-olds having sex, bro.
What is happening?
That's nuts. I've still never held hands with a boy. So I'm 45. We're going to see how long that one goes. All right, cool. So another thing, so OnlyFans, Patreon, what do your fans usually want? So you talked about live streams. I've heard girls. So here's the thing. I think from a guy from the outside looking in, what they would expect is start off slow and it just gets more and more lascivious, and then people pay more and more money for the lascivious stuff, and it goes in that direction. What I've actually found from all the girls that I've interviewed is it's like girlfriend experience, right?
Yeah.
Without makeup on, wearing sweatpants, doing a live stream, fans asking, and it's this personal interaction. It's almost like some men wanted some validation, and so that's why they're on there, as opposed to hardcore sex and nudity. That's essentially what was going on. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, for sure. One of my best-selling videos was me like topless making a sandwich. I don't know. People feel like they know you so much better,
Yeah.
and I think, especially in 2020, what we saw was extreme loneliness. People were isolated in their homes, and it gave them the ability to feel like, I can relate to you. You're trapped in your house too. I'm making a sandwich. right now too. So it made people feel like they were almost in a relationship with you.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
see some guy with the phone stand. He's making a sandwich. Carlotta's topless, and he's watching. He's putting the mayonnaise on there.
Yeah. Because, well, the thing is, it's very relatable.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you see girls going to like Aspen, like skiing and flashing their boobs. It's not relatable. Like, yeah, it's hot, but it's unattainable. And there's like a certain like desire in attainable beauty.
Yeah. I used to be a DJ and a manager at a strip club. And one of the things that I noticed was it wasn't the prettiest girls sometimes who were making the most money. And I was like, do these guys like these other girls because they're less attractive? And no, it's because what you said. It's like there was a vibe that these girls gave, like you kind of have a shot, or this whole thing is attainable, or I'm just giving you the attention that you're not getting at home from your wife. And that's what actually helped them. Whereas a lot of guys, they're just like more sex, nudity, sex now, hardcore. That's all they think about. So it's really interesting whenever I hear girls talk about that.
Right.
Especially like Brandy Andrews was on here talking about like the girl, like when her boyfriend would not let her film with other girls, she started doing this girlfriend experience thing and started making way more money because of it. No more professional photographers. Her boyfriend didn't even want her to shoot with professional photographers. So she started shooting just with her own camera and started making more money because of it.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep. So this is the other thing. I love when you were talking about this in a previous interview, which was red flags. So first off, what would you tell a model getting into this industry now where she's considering either, bikini stuff or going further, lingerie or nudity or going further than that? What would you tell someone getting into this industry now? And then I also want to know, like, what are the red flags that you've seen?
Oh my gosh. So getting into the industry now is so scary because there used to be like websites that were very specific. Like even though Model Mayhem or One Model Place definitely had issues, what I liked about it was that everybody could link to each other. So if I was going to talk to a photographer, I'd contact like 5 models on their profile and be like, who is this guy? Is he safe? Whatever. Now it's so much harder. So I still recommend if you can find a model that will respond to you, like send a message and make sure if you're going to work with this photographer that you have a good reference on them. There's so many red flags in this industry. Like when people are seeking out fresh faces, I mean, if it's not like, a major magazine, I see that as a red flag. Are you going to want like, 18-year-old no name or Kim Kardashian for your magazine? Like, obviously you're going for Kim Kardashian because she's going to sell the most. So if someone's asking for fresh faces, it's often like a big red flag that...
like a casting couch type of red flag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they prey on new girls. Like,
okay.
Most of these people that are seeking out fresh faces are often preying on people who don't know better, who don't know how to say no, who are just excited to be there, so they don't understand that they're like pushing boundaries or getting inappropriate with something.
Yeah, and you've seen that before. I thought it was interesting. You said it was male models who were acting creepy when you would work with them.
Oh gosh, well, I've only worked with a couple of male models for the most part. I've just gotten a lot of emails from them, and I'd be like, absolutely not.
Well, like, what are they saying?
Oh, they're looking for dates, but they'll try to set it up as like, oh, it's a photo shoot, maybe we can hang out later. I'm like, no, I have no interest in shooting with men anyway. I've only done I did something for like a lingerie catalog, which was very legit, and then like a couple of personal projects. I did something with the Lobster Boy with his hands on my body, but he has ectrodactyly syndrome, so it was actually for my thesis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your thesis for what?
For my BFA.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. Okay, got it. Oh, I understand what you're saying for graduation.
For college. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was doing.
Oh, so you're getting a
stuff on the
PhD
side
or something?
show.
Okay, that makes sense.
No,
okay.
In the art world, you have a BA, a BFA, or an MFA.
Yeah.
So a BFA is like a 5-year degree with a thesis.
Got it. Okay. That's pretty nuts. And then the other one I thought was really funny was you talk to photographers and they do things where they kind of cross the line. One of the things that I've heard a lot of girls say is that it is the ones that cross the line that are some of the best photographers. So there's this like weird edge where it's like, I want these photos from this guy. I know one girl right now, and she consistently complains to me about this one photographer who holds the photos over her head. It's always come by my place, and so I edit these in front of you. Come lay on the bed here while I do that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would not play that game.
Yeah, but it seems to be getting worse. Like I see it a lot more frequently, and then the photos are just fire, and she's just so excited. And there seems to be this like line where, okay, well, I will deal with this level of inappropriate behavior in exchange for these photos.
Yeah, I do know that exists.
Yeah.
I feel like most of those guys get weeded out. Just you get enough bad references, and then people won't even show up to shoot with them, at all anymore. But I'm pretty fortunate. I think I have such like a bitch face. I have such a resting bitch face that like people don't fuck with me anyway. And even if I'm not dating anybody, I'll talk about having a boyfriend at the shoot just to like put in their head that I am not available. I do not want you making advances. If you try to make advances, I will say something to you. So I've never been one to put up with shit.
Is there particular people you like working with? You said Dare before. And there are other models or the photographers you like working with?
Oh, goodness. Cody Renee, as far as models, she's great.
I know Cody.
Yeah, she's awesome. I met her through Playboy, but
Have you been to Babes in Toyland?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be there in December too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of who else. So many of my girlfriends
have you shot with
retired.
CJ before?
I've never shot with CJ. Yeah. I've only, it's weird because she and I have messaged each other over the years many, many times, like, just reference or, events or whatever.
Have you done Inside OnlyFans?
Oh, no, and we've been meaning to.
You will now. Welcome to the Michael Sartain podcast, otherwise known as the podcast everyone goes on before they go on Inside OnlyFans. We have this like little rivalry between our two podcasts. Yeah.
No, she's been asking me to, and since I moved out here, we've not been able to get our schedules together, but it definitely will happen. But she's on my, to shoot with. Actually, I guess I technically did do like one little OnlyFans shoot with her, but it was like a group of us.
CJ, so I always wanted for CJ and I to host a podcast or host a show for Playboy Radio. That was a dream of mine a long time ago. Playboy Radio didn't hire me. Shame on you, because now I got a bigger podcast than your freaking channel. But that was always the thing. But CJ lived in LA and I lived here, and so I love having her on here. And then she does Inside OnlyFans, and so we make fun of each other. But yeah, she's great. She's great. She is legitimately my favorite person in all of Los Angeles.
Oh,
yeah. All right, so there's CJ, and then doing some of the other stuff, and you have the try-on hauls. Oh, let's go back to the one thing before, the red flags. You mentioned more about fresh faces. Were there any other red flags that you see for girls?
Oh my goodness, I'm trying to remember because it's been so long since I've been on the traveling circuit where I would actually go to other states.
You talk about guys with cameras.
Yeah. So my early career, for many, many years, was taking I'd book basically tours where I would say, I'm going to go to New York City and I'm going to work with all these photographers. And I'd plan like 5 or 7 days where I would just book myself solid with photo shoots. And most of them were great, to be honest. You've got the title of guys with cameras. I was pretty known as a figure model and art model, so I was mostly working with like art photographers, and for sure the random creep would come through, but for the most part it was a pretty good experience, and I did that full time from the end of 2006 until 2014.
Did you ever do any of the destination shoots, like the group shoots?
Not really. No. I have done like workshops and group shoots, but I did never do like the ones in Jamaica or anything like that.
Yeah. I like them because if somebody did something inappropriate, you found out about it real quick and we would get rid of them. Like that was one thing that I did appreciate. There was like kind of a strength in numbers. Also, the other reason why I liked it, there were 2 reasons. Number one, you would get big models who would just have a spot open in the afternoon and they would shoot with somebody they'd never shot with before. It turns out this guy's awesome and they would have had no idea. And secondly, the girls who show up who actually look like their photos, but they're young and they don't know how to photograph, and they would have never had a chance to shoot with this photographer or this photographer who's really big. That's one of the things I did like about it. A lot of people would get discovered at stuff like that.
The reason I avoided a lot of those was just because they were big party atmospheres, and I am not a partier at all. I really don't drink. I don't do anything, so.
Yeah, definitely. Some of them, like you can go to bed on time if you want. Get up early if you want. This is another thing I never noticed. You said something before about when women wear white and when men wear red.
Oh yeah, there's like a power play. Supposedly, men are more attracted to women who wear shades of like white or beige, things that I guess are seen as sort of demure or like maybe passive.
Submissive?
Yeah, submissive.
Okay.
That's the right word. And men are seen as more attractive when they wear the color red. And I
Interesting.
cannot remember where I read this at, but apparently red is seen as a powerful color. So while women might be seen in red as like they can be seen as attractive, they're not seen as necessarily desirable in the same way. I don't know. I guess I think of like Jessica Rabbit, like, yeah, she's really hot from afar, but do you really want to deal with her? She's probably a pain in the butt, you know? So, but there is like this image of that. Images of me on Instagram where I was wearing like white, beige, light pink, light blue would go viral significantly more than if I was wearing black or red or like a more vibrant color.
Do people? I've never heard the women white for women. I've heard the red for men. I've never heard that before. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I'm actually gonna have to do some research and check that one out. But that's a very interesting thing. The other one. Do you get a lot? Any companies, vintage companies, send you stuff? Do you ever get sponsored by people? Anything like that?
Occasionally, I've had a couple of the pinup, like they're more like modern pinup companies who have sent me items, and I've done hauls specifically with their stuff, like the Betty Page swimsuits and things of that nature. It was Pinup Girl, and but largely I have a vast collection, and I really like to feature like things that people would not normally see. Like I have a very large collection of disco wear from Fredericks of Hollywood in the 70s.
Oh my
And
God, man! And it's just like it's so specific when you say this. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? By the way, Fredericks of Hollywood. That was one of the other magazines that we would hide out in the woods in a box when we were 12 and 13.
Oh,
yeah.
those were just catalogs.
Yeah. Hey, listen, for us, back 1991, that was incredible. You know what I'm saying? I'm old, so that was amazing.
Yeah. But those catalogs, actually, I look for them to match with the outfits
Yeah.
too. There's some of the most amazing pieces, and they're just lost in time. So I love to be able to feature that on YouTube. It's unfortunate that YouTube is starting to bury try-on hauls because I feel like I actually do have something to say about the history and taking care of these
Yeah.
and what they, were used for, and especially like vintage undergarments as well, because I have a lot of the old girdles and bullet bras and things like that. So yeah, I'm hoping that YouTube can see past mine. I've recently actually just seen it growing in like the last maybe month, and it hadn't grown for like 6 months. And in the last month, I've got 2 videos that are like about to hit 100,000 views each, and nothing was really hitting any before. So I don't know if maybe they took me out of like a shadow ban.
Yeah. Do you plan these out with the try-on hauls? Do you like a certain number? Because I've seen the ones you've done with Dare. Do you plan them out ahead of time? Do you do one per week? Like, do you have a schedule for this?
I usually try to put out 2 a month, and I just go through my closet, think of what's inspiring me, especially in that season. Like I do a lot of swimsuit stuff, like through like spring and summer.
You did one with the micro bikini, and you're like, have these things changed in size or something to that extent? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because the swimsuits today are like strings, and
Yeah.
I used to, as an art model, I always had pubic hair.
Yeah.
I always found it to be like you can't date an image if a girl has pubic hair. You don't know if it was taken in like,
Yeah.
1902 or today. So I always had pubic hair, and the more like OnlyFans and glamour stuff I do, the more I have to shave, and the more I have to shave, and the more I have to shave. And now I've got like this tiny little landing strip because nothing fits in these little swimsuits.
And there's the TikTok clip right there. That is the one. There you go. Beautiful. So that was interesting. Also, the fails. You had one where you were talking about like bikini fails.
Yeah.
You have some that just don't fit, or
Well, it's like they're just strings. I can't figure out how
Yeah.
to put them on.
Yeah.
I pull it out of the box. I'm like, what is this? I don't even know. So yeah, there was a lot of fails in one. So I just called it the fail bikini haul or something.
do you do collabs with other girls besides Dare as far as the hauls?
I will. I'm trying to think. I feel like I've done 1 or 2 with other people, and it's not coming to me as to who I've done them with. But I'm definitely open to it. I'll put it that way.
Do you deal with any kind of criticism on your different sites, or is almost all your feedback positive?
I feel like most of it is relatively positive. The feedback I usually get is just people complaining that I'm not getting more adult or, not showing my butthole, whatever. But for the most part, people are friendly.
Yeah. Do any judgment from family back home, like when you made this transition, anything like that?
You know, surprisingly, one of my grandmother's sisters was a nude model.
Okay.
So no one batted an eye on that side of the family at all. They were just like, she's like Jenny, whatever. And so that side of the family is super cool. They're also very liberal and very progressive. Mm-hmm. And my mom's like my biggest cheerleader. So I'm grateful for that. You know, I was in Playboy and she's like buying the magazine, like, look, this is my daughter. I'm like, Mom, don't bring that to work.
Isn't that crazy?
But my dad isn't thrilled, but I also don't ask him for money. So, you know, he used to come at me with like, when are you getting a real job? And I'm like, you know, when a real job can pay what I'm, you know, making now. Like I bought a house with this. So can you really come at me with that?
It really is interesting. That seems to be the transition, right? It's when are you going to get a real job? I can't believe you're doing this thing. And then all of a sudden you show up with the Porsche and then they're like, oh, then all of a sudden dad's fine with it. You know what I'm saying? I've seen that.
You know, it wasn't until he visited me here and he saw like, wow, you actually bought this amazing home and you have, you know, a vintage car and, you know, a daily driver and you're fine. And you know, and I think that's when it really clicked, like, this is a job. I pay taxes, you know?
Now, this is, I ask every guest this, dating throughout this whole period, was it ever difficult? Did you feel like you were receiving judgment? I mean, imagine like being around the Playboy Mansion, that most people were okay with that. Did you have any kind of issues? This is what I hear some girls say. They'll be like, I'll meet guys, but they want me for the wrong reason. That kind of thing. Was that ever an issue for you?
It definitely can be. I was married for a long time. So
where did you meet your husband?
I met him in college before I was modeling, and he was supportive, and it was never really an issue. I think I was on the road a lot, which was an issue probably, but that wasn't why our marriage ended. So, you know, that wasn't an issue. But once I was single, it was like I was 31 years old, and it was like, oh my God, I don't know.
You're living in LA.
Yeah, like I started dating him when I was a teenager. So I'm like, I missed the whole dating experience of the 20s. And then I've got my job and I had just moved to LA. And I ended up in a relationship with somebody who had a lot of issues with my job. And I think he really struggled with it, like jealousy. And
why do you think that happens so frequently? So many girls that like, you knew they were doing this, and yet so many of these men are in relation. Did he seem fine with it at first and then change?
Yeah.
Okay, there you
go.
So
I think it seemed like novelty. It was like this fun kind of wild experience. But as soon as it started getting serious, and he had to introduce me to his parents, that's when it started being a problem because he started seeing it as a reality of like, oh, I have to share her with the world. I have to tell my parents what she actually does. And so that was a big strain. And so when that relationship ended, like I've gone kind of through a string of dating and, you know, other relationships. And I try to lead with like, this is my job. I am not leaving my job. So if it's a deal breaker, like, you know,
so what I'm saying, you have open eyes to the fact that your career could hinder your ability to find somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's some women out there that are like, no, this shouldn't have any effect on it. And, you know, but you at least were open to this whole idea.
Yeah.
Is this something you would tell somebody who's starting off like that this may be an issue for them?
Yeah. You know, I try to be very honest with girls who are trying to get into this industry. Yeah. I actually had a conversation with a friend who made an OnlyFans just for like some extra pocket cash. I'm like, don't do it. Like, if you want to make this your career and you want to try to make 6 figures a year, go for it. But if you're trying to do this for pocket change, this is going to affect your life forever. It's going to affect your family. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your children. So unless you are going like all in, it's not worth it.
We definitely need to have you on Access Vegas. This is a pretty common discussion topic. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like that for men and women. Like we do certain things, and then there's consequences for it. But like for instance, with me, I'm so in love with my job that it's caused some of my relationships to suffer. At one point, when I was in the military, I was trying so hard to become the best officer I could that actually my fitness turned to shit. You know, I was eating like crap. There's just different things that happen, and you have to, you know, deal with the consequences of those things. But it's real life. So yeah, and that has been the thing for you. Have you since then found a common ground? Do you just lead with the fact, hey, this is my life and this is what you're gonna have to deal with? Has that worked out for you? Have you found where guys are just like playing? What I'm talking about is the trope of the guy who meets the girl in the strip club and then they start dating and is like, stop stripping. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
well, where'd you meet me? You know, like, what do you think was gonna happen here?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like I went out with a couple of like celebrity types when I lived in LA, and that's exactly like they immediately think, well, you're gonna sleep with me because like you're a nudie model, like that's what you do, and I'm totally not that type of person. Like I'm the type of person that's gonna date you for like 4 months before I sleep with you.
Yeah.
So that was always like a problem. But as
if you're down for 4 months, put 4 months in the chat. Let me see 4 months in the chat. Okay.
But yeah, I feel like because I tend to lead with like this is my job, and I tend to try to make friendships first, and then if it grows, great. But if not, like I'm not somebody that's down for pressure.
If you meet someone, how is it usually that you meet them? Is it a friend of a friend? Is it online? Like how would you usually meet somebody?
Gosh, I actually did do some dating apps. What I found about dating apps was that it feels a bit too like a job interview.
Yeah.
And so nothing feels organic about it. And so I've met some really lovely people on there, but I could never get into a romantic mentality because it felt like pressure. So even though I've made some actually decent friends off of dating apps, I never actually went further than that. So my organic experiences have been much better. The person that I'm seeing right now, I met at
Babes in Toyland. No, I'm just kidding.
I met them in a car club. So, yeah.
So the organic experience.
Yeah.
This is something I talk to people about all the time. One of the main reason why we do the charity events is because we want to raise money as well as we can. Influencers have a superpower. You have a superpower. You can get people to pay attention to a thing, whatever that thing is. If you post, hey, I'm going to help raise money on December 1st at Babes in Toyland for the Midnight Mission. They've been around over 100 years, and these are toys that are going to go to homeless children. Well, now, literally, you just walking on the carpet, that's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth more of toys that we can get to these kids.
Right.
2 18-wheelers full of toys. That's what our goal is whenever we do that with Steve Fowler. In order for you to do that, that's the main goal. The other reason why I love the charity events is this. You can create an eco-structure that I personally believe people with cluster B personality disorders can't stand. What I mean by that is narcissists, sociopaths, people with borderline personality disorder. If I'm constantly putting you in a situation where you come here and donate and then you get nothing out of it, you're not getting paid. You're coming here literally for the function of charity. I found that psychopaths just kind of like don't want to be there. They show up for a while and then they're just like, yeah, I'm not getting anything out of it. Fuck this place. I don't want to be here anymore. So I found that to be the case also. So that's why I like those events. And then the other thing is the organic nature of it. We get it's LA. People, for those of you who don't visit LA, if you go to a nightclub in LA, it's like a race to the bottom. Like who can wear the most fucked up, torn up sweatpants right, and a beanie into the club while you have a sleeveless hoodie on, you know what I'm saying? And you look like you're half asleep and you don't do your hair and you show up and you just try to show how little you give a fuck while you go into the club. And then we're throwing Babes in Toyland and we're like, girls are in gowns and men are in suits, right? We're trying to go in a different direction and try to class it up a little bit. So that's why I like those things. You're talking about a car show. Any kind of event, I think, where people can be themselves, I think is the best place to meet people. I think events are the best. Axe throwing is so fucking fun. Yeah. Axe throwing as a first date is so great. It's like, okay, you have this thing you could kill me with. Let's see how this functions. Let's see how this goes. I love throwing spears. That's one of my favorite things. Or mini golf or something to that effect. But yeah, I think that's interesting. That you said that. It was one other thing I was going to ask you. So yeah, dealing with that whole situation. I did think it was really interesting when I was listening to you before talk about the photographer saying, "Hey, pretend like I'm your girlfriend."
Oh God, those are the worst.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of photographers that will say this, and I honestly think it's kind of innocent to be truthful. Like I think a lot of them think, oh, it'll make you like try to seduce the camera more, but they'll say, oh, just pretend I'm your boyfriend and you're, about to do something, and and instead I just shut down. I'm like, gross, don't want to think about you in that way, and Yeah, so I used to hear that a lot. I haven't been working with like the amateur photographer circuit in a long time, but I do think a lot of them say it like innocently, thinking that they're putting you into a mindset, and instead they're just creeping.
Have you ever had your partner, whoever you're dating, at a photo shoot while you were doing the photo shoot? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you? That's never affected you before?
Not really.
I've seen situations, you were talking about Jamaica. I've seen this situation happen in Jamaica where a woman is being completely innocent. Like she's just doing a photo shoot, but there is a relationship between her and the camera, not her and the photographer, but her and the camera, where she's giving a seductive look to the camera and the boyfriend doesn't get it. Like he's never seen this before and it's too much for him to handle. Every year when we go make this trip, either to Mexico or Jamaica, there's always one couple that gets into a huge fight. And it just seems like they can't quite understand that you're having this moment with the camera, right? And when I was seeing someone, if they start doing a shoot like that, I always leave. Yeah. I always leave because they want to have that moment. I trust them, but they're having that moment.
Right. I would definitely prefer not to have a partner at a shoot. Just because I don't like distractions. Like I'm very professional about what I do.
Yeah.
I can only think of maybe like one time where I had a partner who got pretty uncomfortable about it. And then I just decided I'm never having him at a shoot again.
Yeah.
Because he was being irrational. Like the photographer was a friend of his and he still like was irrational about it. So it's like, okay, this is a him problem. This isn't a me problem.
I brought her like a Snickers and some water. I'm like, she's like, no, stay. I'm like, no, babe, I'm going to go now. You're going to do the shoot. And I shut the door because I want her to have a good shoot, man, for sure. This is the last thing I want to ask you about. It was the videos that you did with the ASMR.
Okay.
You did an ASMR try on haul?
Yeah, I think I have 2 out. Yeah. And I just thought it would, well, the first one, I just wanted to try it just for fun. I'd never done it before. And the second one, the sound got messed up.
Yeah.
I actually have 3 videos where the sound is totally fucked.
Use our studio.
So,
here's the micro bikini.
So I said I might as well, like, I don't want to lose all this content because I flew to LA and booked a studio and stuff. So I did one of them as an ASMR. I'm going to do the other 2 that way as well, I believe. Yeah. Okay.
Is there an ASMR training? Is there ASMR steps you go through, or do you just whisper in the microphone? This whole culture is so fucking fascinating to me.
You know, I tried to do like some of the things like one of the outfits had like a zipper, so I tried to like make the sounds with the zipper and, you know, a lot of whispering, and you can like run your fingernails on things. So it was fun. It's like, it's playful.
Subscribe to my OnlyFans. Get on.
Yes, subscribe.
Yeah, I'm a cat. That's crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess a lot of people are into nails too. I saw Trisha Paytas does a lot with like crazy long nails, and she taps them on everything. So I need to discover more about ASMR.
It's this weird thing where it's like I want to listen and am terrified by it at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's gonna drive me crazy, but at the same time, like it's so crazy to do it.
So from what I understand, you're supposed to be wearing headphones when you do it, and people say that it like gives them like tingles.
Oh, of course.
Goosebumps. Yeah. So I don't know. I can't say it does that to me though.
Yeah. Where can we find you on different platforms?
Okay, on OnlyFans, I'm the Carlotta, Carlotta. Instagram, it's Carlotta Champagne. TikTok, it's the Carlotta. Twitter, I think it's the Carlotta. And I have a Patreon as well, and that is also, it's like patreon.com/the Carlotta.
Do you have anyone who does the uploading for you on all these different platforms, or do you everything yourself?
I do have like a management that helps me with some stuff. More on Patreon. Patreon is like, you know, just they more like keep everything on a routine because I've fallen behind on it. Yeah. So they're trying to help me catch back up with it. But for the most part, I try to stay on top of stuff myself, and you know, and it's just a lot. It's a lot of work. Carlotta was a nickname growing up. Yeah. So my name is actually Carly, and for whatever reason, I had a relative that would call me Carlotta. She'd read like an Anne Rice book, and then someone wrote, like one of my friends in high school wrote a comic, and they made me a character in it named Carlotta. So I've just kind of stuck with it all these years.
Beautiful. Do you have anything coming up in the near future?
Ooh, I'm always doing something. I've got a shoot on Friday for a magazine. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but or not Friday, sorry, Monday. And then I'm going to Babes in Toyland.
There we go.
And I'll be doing some stuff in LA.
Let's get it, girl. Yeah. Hell yes, man.
Shooting haul videos too when I go out there.
Hey, let's do a try. Hey, why don't we do a try on haul on the red carpet?
I should.
Fuck
yeah.
it. Why not?
Red carpet dresses.
Could you imagine? That would be amazing. You just change. Oh my God. Could you imagine how crazy that would be? The Getty photographer's like, what do I do? Okay, let's keep
Like,
shooting.
stop walking on this carpet, lady. You're taking up all the space.
And listen, if you come on after 11, I will clear the whole carpet on and you can do a try on haul there.
Oh my
Will
God, that
not
would be
stop you in
amazing.
2 seconds. You can use my camera crew. 100%. That would be amazing. Yeah, I think that'd be very cool. Very creative.
I might be
different.
down for that. Yeah.
And it would bring some more, publicity to the charity that we're trying to do.
Right. Yeah, for
We're trying to
sure.
raise money for by the way, in March we do it for animals. In June we do it for troops overseas, or July we do it for the troops overseas. In December or November we do it for homeless children, a toy drive. So that's how Babes in Toyland works. Awesome, man. Oh, we also do an animal rescue one in May in Miami. We're doing that one, and we're also doing one in Los Angeles or Las Vegas at some point.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never been to the ones in Miami. It's been on my to-do list.
Yeah, they're super fun. We do them at the SLS.
Okay.
We do them there at a pool at the SLS. It's really cool. Hey, thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For sure. We briefly talked when it was CJ's birthday.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah, she came out here. We went out to Top Golf and had a blast. And
Yeah.
and you guys seemed like you were really cool. And I remember Adair telling, I was like, hey, Adair, do you want to come see Tiesto? She's like, I've never heard of Tiesto. And I was like, man, I feel old. The fact that you are too young to know who Tiesto is, and she goes, is it like Marshmallow? And I was like, is it like Marshmallow? Is Tiesto like Marshmallow? I was blown. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do. But the thing is, I don't know who he is either.
No,
but,
it's fine. It's fine.
But the thing is, like, she and I are both workaholics.
Yeah.
Like, we are not party people.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going out to clubs. So, like, it's just not on our,
That's another thing. I had a conversation with my friends about this before. They were throwing these photo shoots, and then afterwards they were like, hey, we had a party. We had a mansion. So we had a photo shoot at the mansion after we had a party. He's like, a bunch of the girls would leave. And I tried to explain to them, I'm like, you're confusing nightclub girl with model.
Mm-hmm.
They're not this. There used to be a closer overlap.
Yeah.
Sometimes the overlap is zero now.
Right.
Sometimes model means get up at 6:30 to do cardio.
Mm-hmm.
Take the kids to school and then do girlfriend experience on OF.
Right.
And party girl goes to party. You know what I'm saying? While she has her job working at, the strip club on the weekends or, as a cocktail server or something like that. And so there's a bifurcation of those two things. And I think a lot of people get that mixed up. Like you said, you went on a date with a celebrity in Hollywood or in Los Angeles, and they're like, well, you're a nudie model. Obviously, you're going to have sex with me. And like, no, you're thinking of the wrong industry. These industries have separated. So I think that's a really interesting observation.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. All right. Well, really glad to have you here. Glad that she came out, man. We've got a bunch more coming on. You can see her on Inside OnlyFans. I have a prediction. She's
that?
Inside OnlyFans.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
CJ's
Yeah,
podcast. I predict it now that she's going to be on Inside OnlyFans. Shout out to CJ, my BFF. Guys, thank you so much. The growth has been fantastic. We've had a bunch of live streams. Thank you, man. All you people who've come on the super chats with the live streams. I did not expect it to do so well. We've been doing the MOA trainings, and those have been live streams. We've been doing Access Vegas. We're going to do it here in a couple days here in Las Vegas. We have some pretty amazing guests come on. So thank you guys. Make sure you subscribed. I know a lot of you guys are not subscribed to this. Make sure if you guys, you're like, hey, I know some of you were complaining. It's like, hey man, your podcast is 3 hours long. I can't listen to the whole thing. We're starting to upload 10-minute clips for the podcast. So guys, please make sure you check those things out. Also come check me out on Instagram and TikTok. We're putting 90-second clips up there. So, hopefully you guys will like that. It's pretty amazing. I don't know if you've noticed this because I know you have, a lot of followers on Instagram. Most of my interactions are from people watching 1-minute clips on my Instagram of the podcast, not the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of people are really into like just short bits. I found that like my try on haul videos do best when they're under 5 minutes because people are going on their lunch break
Isn't it
and they're
crazy?
like scrolling through. If it's like 10 plus minutes, which is what YouTube wants,
Yeah.
that's when they'll like pay out the most.
Yeah, you
People don't watch
can't
it.
run mid-roll ads unless it's, I believe, 8 minutes long
Yeah,
or something
so
like that.
People don't want to watch it.
So if you guys want to see me do a try-on haul, put try-on haul in the comments, and I will see you guys all next week.